Welcome everyone. I am Dana, aka Leafy Diva on all of my socials, and today we're talking the Paraiso Verde. We are going to go over my journey with this plant as a small 4-inch planter out of tissue culture to this big beautiful plant you see today. I'm also going to be sprinkling some tips and advice in there because there are definitely some things about this plant that I want you to know about. So if that sounds interesting, please take a moment to like and subscribe, and let's jump right in. I got this plant in March of 2022. I won it in a Facebook auction. It was grower's choice, and I got the runt of the group, right? And I was still excited about it. It's just that I didn't have high expectations for this plant, but I was still really excited. I was so excited, actually. I couldn't wait to get it into a new planter, so I repotted it within days. I transitioned it from soil to lechuza pond, that's like a mineral substrate, and put it into a self-watering planter. And again, it is not advisable to do that to a plant you just got in the mail, but I was just so anxious. But it worked out and the plant survived. And so the next leaf that came out was a lot larger than the other ones, and it was really highly variegated. So that was really promising. Back in those days, I was keeping it like right on the side of an 8-foot south facing window. So the plant was getting a lot of light. That's probably a lot more light than they recommend for the plant, but you know, to each his own. I was repotting it like the next month, and a month after that, it was just growing really fast. And that's kind of how it all got started. I'm like, okay, obviously I have the right conditions to grow this plant, so let's see how big I can get it. So since it was growing so fast, I was trying to make sure that I gave it enough fertilizer. I use Foliage Pro. I would dilute it and give it a microdose at every watering. Also, I was really diligent with repotting. As soon as I felt that it had outgrown the pot, I moved it. And that's usually not me. I usually procrastinate when it comes to repotting plants, but I had a plan for this plant. These are summer leaves from last year. As you can see, they're really highly variegated. And people were like, what's your secret to getting the variegation so high? Like mine doesn't do that. And honestly, I didn't know. I had no reason other than like maybe because I have it in high light. So by like around September, I finally figured out what it was. I was reading that the Paraiso Verde's variegation is temperature dependent, which made a ton of sense to me at the time because that summer was a hot summer. My AC was like not working properly. My average temp was like 85 inside the house, and it would get as high as 87, 88. And then I would measure the temperature right by the window, and it would get up in the 90s sometime. Like I'm in here suffering because it's hot, but apparently the plant loves it. So I just kept repotting it. So it just kept growing. Also, I decided that I was going to repot it for the final time. And what that means is I am not putting it in any other pot. So if it gets bigger for this pot right here, I don't know. I'm not going to repot again. I've repotted this so many times. And this planter is ginormous. This is a self-watering planter. I think it's like 42-inch circumference. I'm not sure. This is big. So I am hoping he is okay with this. And this was some months ago that I repotted it in this. He did lose a couple leaves, which I was really sad about because throughout the whole growing process, he's kept his baby leaves. And so when he moved here, I think this is a little bit too stressful for him because this is a lot of pot for the root system. So he took some transitioning, but he stopped dropping the leaf when it got to like about here, and now he's exploding in growth. So I'm really excited about that. While this is like a jack of the beanstalk type of situation, this thing just grows, it does have its shortcomings. Number one, this is a gangly plant, like a gangly plant. The petioles are so long, the internodal spacing is so wide. It's like the plant just doesn't want to stay together. Especially for the space I'm in, I need things that are like more compact, and this is just so lanky. Philodendron pastizanum is pretty gangly and lanky too. My parents have one, and that thing is massive. So what I ended up doing is I decided that I was going to use these plant stakes. I have these plastic plant stakes right here. You can get them at like Lowe's, Home Depot, any of those places. And so I basically put the leaves where I wanted them to, so you couldn't really see a lot of empty spaces, because I really don't like seeing part of the vine or the stem when I'm looking at a plant, especially a plant in my own house. I just want to see the plant. I just want to see the plant. It looks a mess back there, but it works. So basically, when every new leaf comes out, I decide where I want it to go because I wanted to do a certain thing. So I went out and brought these plant stakes. I forgot how long this is. I think this is 4 feet possibly. This, however, this is 6 feet. Most of the leaves are anchored onto this. And as the plant gets larger, because yes, we're going up to the ceiling, I have these 6 foot plant stakes so that I can continue to grow this because the roots tend to want to stick to my wall. So yeah, I have a plan. Now, the issue that I ran into with all of that is I was not prepared for fall and winter. You can actually see fall and winter in this plant. So these are the summer leaves, right? And this is when it started going like darker. And so it started progressing to, I think this is the next leaf that it made. And I'm like, oh goodness. And then it made one of these leaves. And then it spot out like an all green leaf and then another all green leaf. And at that point, I'm like, I need to do something because I kind of envision this really tall tower of leaves and they were all going to be like pretty variegated like this. And so I didn't really want this. So what I decided to do is stun its growth. I was just like, I don't want it to grow anymore this winter and hopefully it'll stop. I ended up cutting it and that worked because it took a little while. But when, when I cut it, it started growing back so fast and it hadn't gotten warm yet. I wanted to cut it again, but I was just like, no, I'm not going to push my luck this time. Fortunately, though, when I did cut it, it produced a new growth point. So now I have 2 vines growing up, which is going to make the plant even bushier. Also, what happened is during the winter, the internodal spacing went insane. It was already long, but because it had to stretch because it didn't get light or whatever, I mean, it was really long, and I really didn't like that because that creates some opportunity for like empty holes within the plant. So I didn't want it that way. So again, I needed to cut it. After I cut it, I think this was the first leaf that came out after I cut it, and then this was the first leaf from that new vine right here. Then the next leaf that came out, I think is this one. This one came out, and then I don't know, there's some leaves behind here that you can't see. But basically, so I went from here and then it just stepped up all the way to here. And now it's producing the leaves that I want. I think if I keep this through the winter, I'm just going to cut it because I really don't want these leaves. And honestly, had I known this about the plant, I probably would have passed on it because I don't like variegation that I have to work on. So people told me an alternative was the Jose Buono. That's where this one comes in. I traded the cutting that I cut from the Paraiso Verde to get a cutting of this Jose Buono in hopes that this would take its place and just be beautiful. But I did not know that the variegation on this fades. Like no one told me. I like it. I'm going to keep the plant, but I don't know. I'm in the same position because like this is a faded, like a more faded leaf. And if I put it, I don't know if you can see next to this basically just looked like that leaf. So it's like, I might as well just go ahead and keep this. But I do like I do like this. I do like this. Moving on. Pests. Now, as far as pests go, I have always dealt with spider mites on this plant. And I used to treat for the spider mites, but then I noticed that they never really did much damage to the plant. I mean, the only reason I could even see them is because I have like red spider mites and they're like super bright and they're larger than the 2-spotted ones. And so I would see them on there and they just didn't seem to bother the plant that much. I mean, I didn't see any damage on the leaves. I didn't see anything. And also too, the webbing, it seemed like they weren't able to get the webbing together. Like I would see them on there, but I never had like a ton of webbing and saw like a bunch of spider mites. They just basically, I'm not sure what they're doing on there, but I just stopped treating for it. And right now, there are probably lots of spider mites on these leaves, but I just look the other way because they don't bother anything. So I'm fortunate not to really have those issues. Now, I have other plants that the spider mites completely devour and don't stop. I have no idea. Is it a natural defense or whatever, where the spider mites just aren't able to take a strong hold on this plant? I have no idea, but I'm not going to question it. And so here are my thoughts on this plant. If you are growing this inside of your house and you don't have a lot of space, he might not be for you. Also for variegation, I see a lot of Paraiso Verdes that people have and they don't really have high variegation on them. So I would just advise, I would just go in knowing that. I would go in knowing that if you don't give this a ton of light and a ton of heat, that your variegation may not look like this. And that's fine, but you need to like make your peace with it. But other than that, I'm pretty satisfied with its growth. I would like it to go up to the ceiling. That would be great. Should you get this plant? If everything I said doesn't seem like a problem, to go for it. But anyway, that's all I have for you. Just wanted to come on here really quick and talk about the plant. I will do videos more often. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!